Just 2 days ago I said this, and I'm open to selling majority of players at West Ham. Everybody's got a price. Emerson is no different. I'll deal with that in 1 minute, but first for the report, and it's coming from Fabrizio Romano, so a very credible source behind this one, and he's stating that should Man United sell Casemiro this summer, which is expected, I think he's somewhat expected to depart Old Trafford, interest from Saudi clubs, Bayern Munich and a host of others. But should Man U cash in on Casemiro, Edson Alvarez is at the top of their list to replace the Brazilian at Old Trafford this summer. Now, Fabrizio Romano goes on to state that West Ham are reluctant to sell him, and obviously tips the inevitable link of Erik ten Hag being a big admirer of him. Now, obviously, Erik ten Hag was manager of Ajax when Edson Alvarez was at Ajax, so they've had a previous relationship before. So it comes as no surprise that ten Hag would like Edson Alvarez, and that part of the rumour is very believable. The fact that West Ham are reluctant to sell him is also very believable. But Man U wanting him as a club rather than manager, I'm not too sure. However, and maybe I'm really wrong here, so forgive me, Man United fans, but I do wonder if maybe there's an element of making it up to Ten Hag in the summer transfer window, because obviously it was very public that they were looking at other managers. Supposedly he was going to get sacked after the FA Cup final. They won it, which might have threw a curveball. But Ten Hag has confirmed, the club have confirmed to him that they did indeed interview Thomas Tuchel and decide that Ten Hag was the best man for the job. I'm not sure that that's the case, because why would you interview other managers if you believe you've got the current guy that's best for your club? So they've decided to keep with Ten Hag for the foreseeable anyway. So I do wonder if maybe there's an element of bring in a couple of players that the manager really wants to almost make it up to show support, to say, look, we are behind you, here's the guy you want, just like you wanted Anthony, etc, etc, here's another one that you wanted. Maybe I'm clutching at straws there, but so I do tend to believe this rumour, and obviously it's come from Fabrizio Romano as well, who's a credible journalist when it comes to transfer rumours. Now there's two parts of this that I want to discuss. There's the West Ham part and the Edson Alvarez part, because it's sort of different opinions really. And first I'm going to deal with it from our club's perspective, and I'm going to go back to that clip, which was the majority of players are for sale or open to selling, in my opinion. That's my own opinion. However, Edson Alvarez is in the minority for me. Him, Kudus, Bowen, possibly that's all really, and a couple of youngsters for different reasons obviously. But in terms of the senior players, those three are the three that I would say are not for sale at any price. Now obviously they are. If somebody bid 200 million for Edson Alvarez, would I want us to accept it? Yes, I would. So we've agreed that what I've just said is a bit of a lie, okay? They are for sale at a certain price. However, nobody's going to bid the price that it would take to sell him and for me to be satisfied with it. So it's a hands off for him, Kudus and Bowen. The rest I'm open to. Now I don't want to see a fire sale. I'm not saying sell everybody. I'm just open to it. Go watch the Emerson video if you haven't already. But we need to keep certain players in the squad next season and keep the spine of the team. I think those three are absolutely crucial to it. Now obviously in future we may struggle to keep a hold of one or two of those players. That's understandable, and that's next summer's problem. But for this summer, I think we have to be aiming to build a team around those three down the middle of the pitch. And I think Lopetegui probably is. So when Fabrizio Romano says West Ham are reluctant to sell, I bet we bloody are as well, and so we should be. What would it cost to get him out? I don't know, but it wouldn't be what Man U are paying. What would be value for West Ham wouldn't be value for Man United. He wouldn't be worth it. So we would slap a price tag of 60, 70, 80 million on him. He's not worth 60, 70, 80 million to any club buying him, but that's his worth to West Ham. We've seen leadership on the pitch. We've heard stories of leadership off the pitch. I think he's crucial to this transition into a new era under Lopetegui, but also under Tim Steidten as well. We've got a new transfer strategy. We're going to have a new style of play next season. We've got a new infrastructure and relationship between Tim Steidten and Lopetegui being a head coach rather than the manager. So I think we're going to need as much players to be here next season as well for that transition. I think Edson Alvarez is going to play a crucial part of that. I think he'll suit the way that Lopetegui plays. I think Lopetegui will suit him as a head coach as well. He's obviously off doing his thing with Mexico at the minute as well, and I hope he has a good Copa America. I'll be keeping an eye on him, as well as Lucas Paqueta. But we can't sell him. We cannot. And it's not that he's irreplaceable. Again, and this is the point I was making about Emerson. As Tim Steidten, you have to back yourself. You have to say, do you know what, I can replace anyone in that West Ham team. You have to. If you're worth your salt as an identifier of football talent, but also a really good negotiator when it comes to the deals, which is what essentially Tim Steidten is, then you've got to back yourself. And if someone said to him, could you replace Edson Alvarez for 40, 50 million? Well, the answer should be yes, and I expect the answer to be yes. So I'm no longer, while I don't want to sell him at any cost, I'm not afraid of selling most players now. And it's maybe blind faith in Tim Steidten, because at this point, that's what it is to some extent. And I will judge him on the signings we make this summer and how the team gets on, etc, etc. The proof at West Ham is yet to come. I'm happy with him from a negotiating standpoint because of the business we did last summer. I'm happy with him as a scout because of what he did at Leverkusen. But it's a bit of a promotion for him at West Ham. This is his summer. Let's see what you got. But I'm willing to have a bit of blind faith. I'm willing to give him the belief until he proves me wrong. Rather than saying, you're crap, prove me wrong. I'm more, you're good, don't prove me wrong, but you're good, hopefully, prove me right. So I've this fear factor, and I think West Ham have always had this when it comes to selling our best players. We've always maintained this pre-Tim Steidten, pre-David Moyes, that when one of our best players gets linked with a move away, you get this sense of panic from the club and all these stories come out. Not for sale at any price, hands off, which isn't true. And in some cases, they've ended up leaving. Dimitri Payet and Marko Arnautovic. And I know there's other issues at hand here, but there could be with Edson Alvarez, because we'll get on to him in a second. So I think the club just need to be calm, deal with this in a calm manner, should Man United approach. I hope we don't sell him, but if we do, make sure it's for a big, big fee. Because one thing we haven't really discussed too much on this channel, Gonzo's covered it on the forum channel this morning about having more money than we think, and I agree with that one. There's a lot of stories being put out there that we've got no money to spend, and I'm not sure I'm a believer of that. But I do also believe that the club were perhaps expecting to sell Lucas Paqueta, and perhaps the transfer plans were depending on selling Lucas Paqueta this summer. And if that is true, then as Tim Steidten, he might be thinking he's suddenly got a 60, 70, 80 million pound hole in his transfer kitty. So what does he do? Does he then rein those transfer plans back and we just go without Lucas Paqueta money? Or does he look to try and raise that money elsewhere? And ultimately, there's only a handful of players worth that much. And Edson Alvarez wouldn't command the same fee as Lucas Paqueta, but bar Bowen and Kudus, he might be the one that gets closest to it. Now, that's what I think about from West Ham's perspective. From Edson Alvarez's, and this is where it's different, and you have to take your client in blue specs off for this one. When he first arrived, it was very early doors he came in, and he was asked about the interest of certain Bundesliga clubs that went after him. Dortmund were very heavily linked to him. When we signed him, Dortmund were late runners for his signature. It was almost like the deal between us and Ajax was all agreed. We were trying to get Alvarez over the line, and Dortmund sort of showed up at the last minute. However, couldn't afford him. I think we could pay the fee that Ajax wanted, Dortmund couldn't, and also we can probably offer bigger wages than what Dortmund can. So financially, we beat Dortmund to the race of Edson Alvarez. However, that interest was there. And I recall him getting asked about it. And often you have to find these interviews when they go play for their country. Certainly in the case of Vladimir Coufal, when he goes away with Czechia, he's chatty about West Ham. And whenever you get an insight into Coufal, it's when he's away with his country. And I think Paqueta might be the same, but I think Alvarez is a little bit like that as well. When he goes away to Mexico, he tends to be a bit more relaxed and a bit more open about his thoughts, his experiences. And I recall when we first signed him, it was early on in the season, and it might have been the first international break. And I remember him saying, basically, this isn't a direct quote, but the message I got was, I'm willing to leave West Ham. And now I'm not offended by that. If he comes to West Ham and he sees it as a stepping stone to get to a Champions League club, it's reality. Same with Mohamed Kudus. We signed Mohamed Kudus, and I think there's an expectation, and a realistic one, that eventually he may leave one day and go on and play for Champions League club. We had it with Paqueta. We had it with Declan Rice. And some people will get angry when you have that mentality, but I don't understand why people get angry, because it's not like we can impact the ambition of the club. So if Kudus wants Champions League football, and as a fan you say, well, he's going to leave for Champions League football, people almost get angry and go, why do you accept your best players leaving? Well, we have to. We can't influence him staying at West Ham. And I think we've been quite fair generally as West Ham fans over the last year or two when we're buying these players, that there is an expectation that unless something happens at the club, and that is finishing in the top 4 in the Premier League, or winning the Europa League as it was, so we could get Champions League football, that we will possibly lose our best players. And we would have lost Lucas Paqueta last summer had it not been for the betting allegations. So we won the Conference League, qualified for Europa League, Rice left, and Paqueta was probably going to join Manchester City. So we would have lost our 2 best players last summer. And that's after winning a trophy with Europa League football. So there's the expectation. And Alvarez has basically said, I'm open to leaving West Ham. Who knows what the future might hold. Because he probably just wants to play Champions League football. Now he's experienced that. It's not Champions League football per se. And I appreciate I've just said it. But when I say Champions League football, I'm referring to an English club. I'm referring to Man City or Arsenal or Liverpool. Possibly Chelsea. Not so much... Well, Man United as well to some extent, although they're not a Champions League football, they've got that pool. Aston Villa are a Champions League club, but I wouldn't say they've got the pool that Man United do currently. That may change in the future. Because, and the reason I use that is because, like I always say, when people say, oh, he wants Champions League football, oh, would he join Celtic then? No. They've got Champions League football. You get my point. So he'll go to one of the biggest clubs in England. And it's up to West Ham to get there. It's up to West Ham to grow and achieve that ambition, so he doesn't need to leave to get to fulfil that ambition. But if Alvarez backs himself and wants to play at the top of the game, I've got no issue with it, because to get that move, you're going to have to come to West Ham and play incredibly well. And I think he had a good season. It wasn't 10 out of 10, but certainly wasn't a 2 out of 10 either. I think he had a 7 out of 10 season with us. A few stupid yellow cards in there, one in particular which really caused us bother. But that's part of his game, unfortunately. And I think you just have to put up with it. We knew about it before we signed him. You almost can't complain. I say we as fans can complain, but those who signed him can't really complain too much. You knew he had that lack of discipline when you signed him. So when you see a lack of discipline, don't be shocked. But that's the transfer rumour. Edson Alvarez to Man United. I believe the rumour to some extent. I just don't believe they'll sign him, because I think the fee that West Ham would command, and we've shown, I think, in the last 12 months, especially with the Declan Rice negotiation, I think we did all right in it. We stood firm with our valuation, and we got a good fee for him. And I'd like to. And we were doing the same with Lucas Paqueta as well. Remember last summer, David Sullivan was trying to get Cole Palmer in return for Lucas Paqueta. Not just that, he was trying to get Man City to give us money plus Cole Palmer for Lucas Paqueta. That was a good negotiation. Karen Brady's confirmed it, that Moyes really wanted Cole Palmer, so they went after him, and Chelsea came in and we couldn't get him. So I believe that we did try and get Palmer out of Man City. So negotiating wise, we've been quite good in the last 2 years or so. I think we'd stick to our guns with this one and say, you want him, you can come get him, but bring your checkbook, because he ain't going to be cheap. I don't know. I struggle with transfer values. I think our asking price would be 60 million. I'd imagine that's what West Ham would ask for. I don't think he's worth 60 million to a club buying him. I think 40 million is maybe a fairer fee, 45 million maybe. But I think what we would ask for is something that would price him out of a move. And that's the right thing to do. When you want a player, don't be afraid. When someone wants your player, I just think, don't be afraid of selling him. Don't be afraid of putting a price tag on him. But just make it unrealistic. Like Jared Bowen. Newcastle supposedly want Jared Bowen. According to The Athletic, and I know people dismiss it because obviously they're under pressure with PSR. However, I'd imagine there's a big thing here, and that is if Newcastle sell Bruno Guimaraes to Man City, then they might want Jared Bowen because they've just got 100 million. But as West Ham, don't be afraid. 120 million, 130, 150 million, please. He's an England international now. Scores goals and gets your assists, and he's homegrown. England international, 150 million, please. So don't be afraid of clubs showing interest in your players. Almost, if anything, be proud of it. It means that you're doing something right. But just price them so it's a stupid fee, and if they pay it, you can go and improve your squad. Hopefully they go away. Edson Alvarez, I hope he's at West Ham next season, but I just hope we just take the right approach this summer and just price them out of a move. That's my thoughts on it. Get your thoughts in the comments below. I look forward to reading them. Please do drop a like on the video if you enjoyed it. It's going new around here. The Euro 2024 coverage continues. We're live on this channel at 4:30 this evening ahead of the England game. The Scotland preview will be up tomorrow. Then we'll have the England preview ahead of their final group stage game up over the weekend as well. But anyway, stick around. Thank you very much for joining me. I'll catch you in a bit.